This is the DIBELS 8th Remote Testing Recommendations Training. This is provided by the Office of English Language Arts for the 2021 school year. Hello and welcome teachers and support staff for today's professional learning. Today we're going to talk about DIBELS 8th edition Remote Testing Recommendations. We're going to go over how to provide the DIBELS assessment to students in this remote setting. We're also going to take you through some of the most important points when giving DIBELS virtually. We're going to share some best practices with you to ensure that your testing will produce the most accurate and best results possible. Lastly, we'll give you some resources that will not only help you, but your students and your families as well. Please know we have a separate PowerPoint to help teachers that are new to DIBELS 8th edition. That PowerPoint will go over each individual subtest individually to help teachers learn how to administer the DIBELS assessment properly. Baltimore County Public Schools will be using DIBELS to fulfill the data needed for Senate Bill 734, also known as the Ready to Read Act. Take a moment to review Senate Bill 734, specifically the portion about screening students prior to assessing your students. As mentioned before, Baltimore County Public Schools has a separate PowerPoint to help those teachers who are new to DIBELS 8th edition. However, the DIBELS website also has a PD on administering DIBELS 8th edition. Using the link on this slide will help provide a short overview to administering DIBELS 8th edition, which may also be helpful for any teachers new to DIBELS. Teachers will be administering 4 subtests to our kindergarten and first grade students: letter name and fluency, LNF, phonemic segmentation fluency, nonsense word fluency, and word reading fluency. Since Fontes and Pinnell is not recommended to administer remotely, schools may choose to use the DIBELS oral reading fluency subtest as an optional assessment to gain reading accuracy and fluency data for students in grades 1 through 5. However, oral reading fluency is not required by Senate Bill 734 and would be used as an optional measure for schools if they choose. It is important to follow these best practices when checking your technology prior to assessing students. 1. Teachers need to use a device that is internet-enabled, such as your school device. 2. Confirm that your student has access to a laptop or desktop computer with internet access. Cell phones are not recommended since the viewing of materials would make it too difficult and small for easy reading. Lastly, it is recommended that both you and your students have headphones or earbuds to ensure clear communication. Plan for connectivity. Here are some tips if you experience technology or connectivity issues on testing days. Know that phones may be used by the teacher as a backup method. Phones should not be used for the actual displaying of testing materials. However, if the audio and video connection is not strong enough and there's a delay in the audio that would affect the student hearing and responding right away, teachers could choose to use their phones for speaking to the students while using their device to display the materials. Remember, this method should only be used if necessary. Also, if teachers need to re-administer all or portions of DIBELS, it is recommended to use different probes other than the original probes presented in the benchmark assessment booklets. It's best to talk to your reading specialist if you would need to reassess a student, because teachers would need to access a probe from the progress monitoring booklets in order to not reassess using the same benchmark probe for a second time. Again, hopefully this doesn't happen to you, but if it does, please talk to your literacy team or your reading specialist for support. Organize your materials. At last year's June 4th Reading Specialist meeting, our office shared DIBELS updates with reading specialists and informed them of how to order copies of DIBELS scoring booklets in preparation for this fall's administration. If your school does not have your kindergarten and first grade DIBELS benchmark scoring booklets, please talk to your principal, reading specialist, or literacy team. The benchmark scoring booklets are used to record each student's responses, which will be recorded for later analysis and use. If teachers are unfamiliar as to how to mark and score subtests using DIBELS benchmark assessment, they should watch the How to Administer DIBELS 8th Edition PowerPoint on Schoology or watch the previously identified video from the DIBELS website. Lastly, teachers should use the beginning of the year DIBELS 8th Student Materials PowerPoint provided by our office and found on Schoology to display the DIBELS student materials on testing day. We have developed this PowerPoint to enlarge the student materials to the recommended size for remote testing. Now that we've talked about equipment check, connectivity issues, and organizing your DIBELS materials, let's now talk about how to prepare your remote setup. Here are some best practices for you to follow. The first recommendation is highly suggested. We do recommend that you practice giving remote DIBELS assessment to someone you know. Maybe it's a fellow teacher, a friend, or a family member. Practicing the remote DIBELS assessment is probably the best way to prepare you in giving this assessment to your students. Once you've practiced and you feel comfortable, you of course want to set up a testing schedule. Before your testing schedule begins, you're going to want to preview your webcam each and every testing day to ensure that your lighting and your angles is appropriate. You want to minimize any potential distractions for you, the assessor, and maximize student success by minimizing any distractions for them, making sure that their probes and materials are large enough and visible for them to easily follow your instructions and the responses on the screen. And lastly, we do recommend that you possibly record these sessions so that you can listen to them later and view them later for any additional information you might need or you might have missed during remote testing. As in any testing environment, it's best to preview materials and directions prior to testing. Best practice is to read through the directions and practice administering the assessment. Again, if you do not know how to mark and score probes in DIBELS, please access the other PowerPoint on how to administer DIBELS 8th edition or use the link from the DIBELS website before. Some best practices for previewing and preparing your subtests are to ensure that you familiarize yourself with the words and the sounds of each subtest, specifically nonsense word fluency. making sure the enlarged student materials are there for the student to easily follow and see the probes. Have your scoring booklet and pencil right there in front of you to make sure that you're ready as soon as your students are ready. And lastly, ensure that the correct student materials are being displayed on each subtest. Do a double check before you start your timer to make sure the student can see the subtest you are currently on. The Office of English Language Arts has developed DIBELS 8 remote directions for parents and families. If you would like to share these directions with your families, you can find this page in our Schoology DIBELS 8th edition folder. Now let's talk about the actual testing days with students. These are 6 steps we're recommending that you follow with each and every student. Start by testing the live remote setting environment with the parent or guardian. This will ensure that both the audio and video are clear on their end as well as yours. Then begin an informal conversation with your student. Help put them at ease. Maybe ask them a few questions about themselves. Then you can share a few things about yourself. Making sure that everyone is comfortable in this testing remote environment will ensure that you get the most accurate and best results possible. Establish where the student should look when they are going to be viewing the materials. This will help ensure that you know that they are clear on the directions. Helping them understand that they're going to be tracking from left to right might also be a helpful hint that you give them in this stage before testing officially begins. Practice with the student by having them give you a thumbs up signal to the camera to indicate that they're ready. We actually found this to be super helpful when we were practicing the remote style of DIBELS assessment over the summer. Ask your student, give me a thumbs up if you can see me. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up if you can see the letters on the screen. These are all ways to help practice that the student is not only hearing your questions, but then you're able to see their responses. Then you're going to want to thank the parent or guardian for all their help and then kindly ask them to sit behind their student during assessment time. This will not only minimize the student's distractions, but it will also ensure that we get the most accurate results possible. And then finally, one thing to do before you open your scoring booklet is to reassure the child that today this testing is a little different, but that they are going to do their best, and having an assessment over the computer is just another way that we can find out what they know and what you as the teacher are going to help them with for the remaining part of the school year, and that they shouldn't worry about anything and just do their best work. We have a video for you to demonstrate how to prepare the student for remote testing and what a subtest might look and sound like. Notice how the teacher does a sound check, establishes eye contact, and helps the student practice looking at the probe with the cursor. Some of the subtests need the cursor to be placed strategically under the letter or words for tracking purposes. Left to right and top to bottom reading may need to be supported for students, and the cursor is the best way to help them. Let's watch Patty Nestor, a resource teacher in our office, set up the testing environment and give the first subtest of letter naming fluency with a kindergartner. Please watch now.
Haley, give me thumbs up if you can hear my voice. Awesome. Thanks, Mom. I noticed you just adjusted the camera, so that's a really good thing to do. Haley, can you see me?
Yeah.
Yes? Where are my hands, Haley?
Right behind your head.
Behind my head. So tell me, have you been swimming this summer?
Yes.
Where have you been swimming?
My cousins.
At your cousin's house. Do you see my pointer?
Yes.
Yeah, it's moving all around, isn't it? So I want to make sure that you can see this pointer when we're about to play some of our reading games. Could you do me a favor? Can you check to see if your mom is sitting behind you?
Yes.
Awesome. Give me thumbs up if you can see me. Give me thumbs up if you can see the letters on my screen. And one more, give me thumbs up if you can hear my voice. We are ready. So today we are going to do some reading tasks that you usually do in school. It will feel a little different today because we're going to do it on the computer. So just like always, please do your best. Here are some letters. Tell me the name as many letters as you can. When I say begin, start here and go across the row. Point to each letter and tell me the name of that letter. If you come to a letter you don't know, I'll tell it to you. Put your finger on the first letter. Ready? Begin.
I'm O
U,
U B C M O L S K E U E
E,
F A B C I D I Y N F S Z P.
Great job, Haley. That is awesome. Were you able to see the letters?
Yes.
And were you able to point to the letters?
Yes.
Good. Great job, Mom. Thank you.
Giving DIBELS assessment virtually is not too much different than a face-to-face version as far as the prompts and instructional reminders. The discontinue rule still applies. Please follow the testing manual and scoring booklet to find the discontinue rules for each subtest. The prompts for hesitation are as follows and can also be found in the scoring booklet prior to each subtest. Once the assessment time is over, teachers should score each subtest and record the results on the front of each student's scoring booklet. Refer to DIBELS 8th Benchmark Assessment Guidelines if needed. Schools will then be responsible for uploading all students' scores into the DIBELS data system. Directions for how to do this can be found in the DIBELS 8th edition folder on Schoology. The benchmark scores and scoring booklets can be used for data analysis as well as to plan meaningful and purposeful responsive instruction. Here you will see the DIBELS benchmark scores. These scores have been updated for the 2020-2021 school year. The benchmark format also looks a little different. The grade level bands are identified at the bottom of the page as opposed to the top. Please use this benchmark updates for your 2020-2021 school year. The full version can be available on Schoology as well as directly linked here. The Office of ELA has developed a letter for families to inform and describe the purpose of utilizing DIBELS to screen their student. This letter can be found in the DIBELS 8th edition folder in Schoology. The DIBELS website has a parent guide to DIBELS assessment, which can be either downloaded from their site or found on Schoology to share with parents and families as well. A big thank you to each and every one of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you do. We know how hard you're working, and we absolutely appreciate you. If you have any questions or concerns about DIBELS assessments, please reach out to your reading specialist, your literacy team, or someone in the Office of English Language Arts. Here's to you and your students having a fabulous school year. Thank you for joining us. Take care.